All right.
I'm sorry. All right, we're back with a special edition. We got a very special guest. You know him and love him from so many of your favorite records over the years, but he is that bass guitarist, writer, performer, frontman, entrepreneur, you name it. He is the one and only Billy Sheehan. Hey, Billy.
How are you?
Great to see you.
Nice to be seen. Thanks for having me.
Celebrating Winery Dogs on the eve of the release. Let those dogs loose, I say.
Right on.
No doubt. Now, I know going back to the origin of the group, almost didn't happen this way. You had a little definite idea for a power trio, but I heard John Sykes was the original target. Tell us about that.
Oh, that was kind of a different thing. It wasn't, never actually came together, and we weren't really, Mike and I, we didn't actually get off the ground with that at all. He's an incredible player, but just scheduling and whatever, it didn't, we could tell right away it wasn't going to fly. So, unfortunately, but we didn't really put much into that at all, which is kind of a passing thing. And then we just wanted to find a great guitar player that could sing. And Eddie Trunk mentioned Richie Kotzen, and I know Richie really well and work with him a lot. I don't know why he didn't come to mind with me for some strange reason. And so we went over to Richie's house and sat down for a minute and started talking about what's going on. And right away got up and went in the back room, and there was a set of drums and Richie's bass there and a guitar, and we started playing, and instantly it was working. It was automatic chemistry. And we wrote a lot of stuff on that very first sit down. And then we did it a few more times, came up with our first record, and it was very well received. So we continued on. And we really wanted it to be a band and not a project, not a side project. Because I know as a fan of many bands, when I become their fan, I'm investing my emotion in the situation there. You know, that's my thing, you know, my band now. I love them. And when somebody changes a member or they just put out one record and then they go their separate ways, it's kind of, I don't know, I feel kind of cheated in a way. And so we didn't want things to be like that. So we made a commitment right there to have a band, not a side project. And here we are many years later on our third record. So we're very pleased about that.
Yeah, so exciting. When we think back of the legendary power trios, we think of Cream and ZZ Top and Rush and so many great groups where there's not a lot of people on stage. It's that real tight unit. And with Richie being able to sing besides guitar, you have that. What was your love for a power trio coming into this project?
Well, quite extensive, from Cream, Jimi Hendrix Experience, Grand Funk Railroad, awesome. ZZ Top, incredible. So many three-piece bands, some that you mentioned as well. And I played my early years, Talus was a three-piece unit for a long, long time. And so I'm just used to that, looking over and seeing two guys. And it's interesting that on tour, three guys is so much more easier than four guys or five guys. For some reason, the arithmetic doesn't add up, but it's just way easier. And on stage, I just got to watch two guys, not three, four, or however many more. So improvisationally, it really works well. We can keep an eye on each other, know who's going one way or who's going the other way, and it locks together really easy. I'm all about bass and drums, and I can hear the drums really great without any other sounds going on other than guitar. And we all sing too, so we got a three-part harmony there. And so a three-piece is a really wonderful experience. For a bass player, back in the old days, I would have to do all the extra stuff that a rhythm guitar player or a keyboard player would do, or even a horn section or something like that. So as I'm playing bass, I got to throw in extra things, and that was helped me develop to some degree some sort of a style that would include straight up solid bass, locked with a bass drum, but also a little more frosting on the cake. So it's enjoyable for me as a bass player.
Yeah, and of course we know the monster that Mike Portnoy is, but what are some of the intricacies of his playing that you really lock in with?
Well, we have this automatic bass and drum ESP where I just know what he's going to do. I don't know how. And I match it with my bass line, the whatever drum fill or move he's going to make. And all night long on stage, we're looking at each other and surprised that you cut that one. I had no idea because the band is pretty improvisational. The structure of the songs is the same, of course, basics of it, but all the little licks and riffs and moves you do in between things, those are kind of open for interpretation on any given night. And so when Michael just do some fill that he's never done before in that part of the song ever, and I played the exact same thing at the same time, and it's kind of spooky, but we really got it. It's a great chemistry. I enjoy playing with him very much. He's not only a great drummer and an excellent singer too, but he's also very much involved in many other aspects of the band and touring and putting things together. He's quite an asset.
Yeah, we can tell he's quite the musicologist and entrepreneur. He's got a business mind and he knows his music history. I always say you got to have deep roots to be able to constantly pull from a deep well, of
That's
all
very
this
true.
knowledge and musical ideas. And of course with Richie we have a soulful singer. When
Oh
we
yeah.
think of Free with Paul Rogers, we think Humble Pie with Steve Marriott. Some of our favorite rock bands had a soulful singer. What's important about that, to have that soul and groove in the rock?
Well, it just moves you into a different spot. That's why the bands you mentioned, Humble Pie and Bad Company slash Free, the Paul Rogers singer. What a voice! I mean, what a amazing thing that turned that band into something extremely special. We see, America's Got Talent or The Voice on television. It's about the voice. It's about singing. I don't see any bass players on there, or I haven't anyway. So that vocals are extremely important for me. Every band I've been in has been, except for one or two little instrumental projects, really vocal heavy all the time. Mr. Big, very very vocal heavy. Everybody sings. Back in the day, we'd say. Hey, there's this great guitar player. Oh, really? Oh, what's he do? Yeah, he plays fantastic. Oh, man, I can't wait to see him. Does he sing? No. Oh, well, okay. Well, next. It was an important thing. Back in the day, you save a hotel room, an airline flight, and room in the dressing room if you have a guy that sings, because he's taking the place of someone else who would have to sing that part. So it's super essential. So, and Richie's voice is no pitch correction. That what you hear on the record is real. What he sings live is real. We all do, and pretty spectacular. We did 9 shows in a row one time when we first launched, and him singing full voice and hitting it every night, and pretty amazing. Quite an athletic endeavor there to pull that off. But he's just got a great voice, and he's a great songwriter, lyricist, the whole package. And he's mostly fingerstyle guitar now too, which is wow, because I play with my fingers as well. So some of our things match up really well now because we're both approaching our instruments in a similar fashion.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, when we first think of you and Mike and Richie and so many people, we think of the musicianship, and as we should. You guys are stellar at what you do. The dues that you've paid and the exploration of your instrument is obvious. But as you say, it comes down to a voice and a song. The songs are so important. When we think of
Oh
our
yeah.
favorite bands, yeah, they were hellified players, but I can't think of too many songs. This song starting with the Beatles and Motown and the Stones and everything, they were songs, and that's what you have with Winery Dogs. As great as all the players are, it would be so much less if the songs weren't great. Talk about, your experience over the years, the importance of the songwriting.
Well, I agree 100%. Yeah, with the songs are the platform that everything else goes on. The songs are are the whole point. You can dress it up, and add solos and add more complex changes. But some of the simplest little songs in the world just they go all the way around the world. They're accepted and enjoyed by people even that don't speak the language. The song is a universal thing. Uh, the Beatles were arguably one of the best writing bands ever, as far as their songwriting goes. However, they started out as a copy band. I had their first demo on a bootleg that I got in Japan, and there's 20 songs on it, and not one is an original. No originals on that. But then they later became quite an amazing writing band, as I said. So I think the evolution of that is, and that's happened to all of us in the Winery Dogs and most of the bands I've been in, that we grow up playing in a cover band, copy tunes. Everybody does. Almost every musician and player played cover tunes to start. You sat down with a record, you learned it, you got in a band, you played clubs and bars and high school dances and playing. But interesting thing about those songs that we were covering, we were covering the hits. We weren't covering some deep album cut. We were covering the songs that were on the radio and that were hits. So you kind of get used to that mentality of how a song goes together, the value of it, how you make it work performing it on stage. So those early years for me were really wonderful to help my songwriting sense, I believe, because we played songs. We played everything. We played everything by Three Dog Night, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Grand Funk Railroad, the Stones, the Beatles, Hendrix, Trower, you name it. We played everybody, and it was good training to do that. So now, when it comes down to writing a song, you have a sensibility about what works and what doesn't from playing all those incredible hit records. And I believe, in my humble opinion, I think that was a factor for a band like the Beatles, that they were a cover band. And I remember there was a time a lot of young players said, "Oh, I don't want to play copy tunes. I want to play only originals." Like, well, you'll be unique in that nobody else got there without playing cover tunes first. That I know of. Van Halen, AC/DC. I got bootlegs of Ronnie James Dio singing "I Left My Heart in San Francisco" in a lounge band. Bon Scott singing "To Know You Is to Love You." All these iconic metal guys and heavy rock guys. Almost everybody played copy tunes. Van Halen was all copy tunes early days. So I think that is a big help to and a good pathway to songwriting. Not the only one. And it's not a rule; it's just an observation. But I think those points are important for a musician to start to learn songs. A good idea.
Yeah, you look at those early, Van Halen, backyard parties and club gigs, and it seemed like Edward really, learned how to write a great rock anthem. He's playing those Mountain and Rick Derringer and ZZ Top and all the great Humble Pie songs. He's playing all those songs, and it seemed like he especially kind of distilled that DNA of what it takes to make that incredible riff and memorable song. And then of course your friend David Lee Roth loved soul and R&B and funk, and brought that swagger and that groove. And I say those 5 sets a night, 5 nights a week at Gazzari's for 4 years really is what created Van Halen's songbook, because they started writing originals and they had all that to draw from.
Yeah, we in a similar parallel universe back in Buffalo, New York, we were playing every night of the week. We played 21 nights in a row one time. We did 3 complete shows in one day once as well, morning, afternoon, and evening. Thousands, literally, of gigs every single night, slugging it up. We're up there, and we were up there before there were monitors to hear yourself sing. We just sang anyway and turned the PA a little bit so we could kind of hear it. And I got tapes from back in those days, and we were on. We hit it. It's a great training ground to be playing in clubs. I wish that same scene was around today for younger players, to just get on that deck and do it every single night and in front of an indifferent audience and try and get their attention and figure out what show business is all about. And It was incredible training, and not only as far as performance goes, but as far as marketing your band and knowing what to say to the audience and making friends with the audience and putting your thumb on the pulse of what they like and what they don't, and songwriting, as we mentioned, and so many other factors that you learn coming up that way. So bands that came up that way, I think they stick out quite in a very good way.
Yeah, and of course the Beatles, love the American artists, Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Buddy Holly, and it's funny because growing up, we got that sense that the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and Zeppelin, they were so original, and it was all coming from England, and that's where it emanated. And then you talk to them, and they're like, all our heroes are American. It's Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon and John Lee Hooker and all these incredible blues players that probably were rarely compensated. They were the birth and the DNA of these billion-dollar bands that we think of from the 60s.
Absolutely. The Everly Brothers, another one. You listen to their harmonies, and there's so much of what the Beatles do. That's the Everly Brothers voicings and their harmony. Brilliant. I listen to them a lot, and I'm always reminded of the Beatles. Pretty amazing. Yeah, it all comes from somewhere. There was I think it was Hunter S. Thompson. I forgot the book that he did this to. It might have been Little Women or something. But anyway, he sat down with a typewriter and took a great novel. I forgot what the title of it was. And he hand typed the entire book to get the feel of what it would be like to write such a great book. So even in other fields, copying those who came before us is a tried and true method of becoming good at what you do. In a lot of painters spend a lot of time in training, copying some of the masters, and see how can you do a painting that looks like that? What do you do? How do you even start? So copying was also an important thing for painters, for architects, similar things, and it's a really important step that a lot of people don't realize these days, and I wish they would maybe revisit that, because those around us we take from everybody. As a bass player, I always say it's an illegal question in an interview to ask me who my influences are, only because I've said it so many times in so many places, listed them online, done videos about it, blah, 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 and I still get the question. So, what are your influences? And I've given up on trying to resist. But the long list of players, not only bass players, but every instrument you can imagine, classical music. All kinds of things. So taking from those around you is a very, very important step.
Oh, absolutely. And I understand that a lot of these songs come together when you three get in a room, and Richie might start scatting out ideas or a melody or improvised lines, and it starts to flesh out. Take us inside, the creation of a lot of these songs.
Yeah, when we first started, like I said, we got together in it was a little tiny room in Richie's studio, and we started playing, and I was sitting on a little amp. So this last album, we did that with a hot streak as well, but we went to a full studio afterwards. This time we did it very much like the first record. We were in, again, a little tiny room, and Richie in a different house, but he still managed to get a tiny little room. We're sitting there, Mike's crash cymbal is about 10 inches from my head, and we're scrunched up playing. And we just started putting things together. That's another thing that I'm very pleased about with this record. We made it pretty old school. We were in a room coming up with ideas. I play a bass line, Mike can do a beat to it, Richie'd start scatting, bang, bang, bang. We need a chorus. Let's try doing this. Okay, that sounds like a chorus. Okay, next. And we would be bestowed with this good fortune of chemistry that we can do that and get pretty good results. I'm very pleased with the songs on this record as a result. But sitting around in a room with guys instead of file sharing over the internet and like it's often done these days, is a necessity, and I've done that as well. But being in a room together just makes it a little bit more organic, and I do believe that has an effect on the final product to a large degree. That the process in the end, there's evidence of that process and what kind of process it was. So we got a real organic way of going about putting a song together. And it also includes everybody's input. It isn't like one guy comes in and tells everybody else what to do. We all have enough sensibilities, again, from what we just spoke about, from playing so many songs for so many years by so many artists. I know when to pull back, when to push forward, left, right, up, down, and so do Mike and Richie. So it's a real natural thing. You know, when as soon as Richie starts to sing, I choke down tone wise so you can hear his voice. And in between, I'll come up a little bit more. Mike knows there's a hi-hat on the vocal part, and the chorus is a ride cymbal, and all these little things that you generally do to open it up. It's an interesting process to watch. My regret is we didn't just have a bunch of GoPro cameras sneakily stuck around the room somewhere to record it all. It would have been interesting to edit that up and show people how the whole thing went down, but you'll have to take our word for it. It was a great experience being in a room together. And Mike and Richie are so talented. We do have a big bag of tricks, all of us, from doing this for so long. Dig deep down in there, find this. Hey, how's this for a chorus? Perfect. You know, so that's a big help as well.
Yeah, no, it's very organic. It's kind of like a heart with all the, arteries and, the blood coming in. It's very organic. With technology, you can send files back and forth, but there's nothing like guys in a room
True.
Just breathing and birthing, these songs.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a cool thing, and we're very much about being a live band. I'm a live player. That's my main thing. I live to play live. I play live to live. That's my thing. And when we take that out, as we're going to do starting on the 15th in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh, to start this tour, we'll be taking those songs on stage, and every night there will be some form of creativity, some nuance of improvisation. Solos will probably never be exactly the same night to night. There's a little bit of creativity in that area. It keeps it alive, keeps it fresh, it keeps it growing and evolving at all times. Live music, it's a lively art. It's meant to be alive, and when you're alive, you're creating. And we're very excited to be able to get this out on the road so soon. And this tour is going to go for most of the year, as far as we can see at this point, and maybe longer into next year, I hope, because we during the pandemic, it was difficult to work at all. I haven't really played a real show for almost 3 years, so I'm itching to get out there.
Yeah, what is amazing, of course, the Winery Dogs 3, of course, coming off a hot streak in the debut, mixed by Jay Rustin. The team is back. The tour is rolling out, and seeing a band and a album birth this way is so exciting. I got to ask you though, we had talked before, about you joining David Lee Roth band, of course, famously befriending Van Halen with Talus playing in the Northeast and everything with them. And you told the story of you kind of giving it away, speaking to Edward one day on the phone, that you were going to meet with Dave the next day. And Dave, of course, had sworn you to secrecy. Don't tell anybody. Remind us of that story, how it kind of slipped out of the bag. Hey, Ed, I'm meeting with Dave tomorrow. He's like, what?
Well, yeah, it's when I got out to LA, Talos was going to start the Ingve tour. That was we just got signed to William Morris Talent Agency, and as I was out there, I called Ed to invite him to the show, and had mentioned to him that Dave called me and wanted a meeting with me. But Dave said that the meeting was he wanted me to be in his movie. I said, what? So I didn't have any idea that it was about a band. So when I went over to finally meet with Dave, he said, there is a movie, but I quit Van Halen and I want to start a band. So would you like to join me? And I said, yeah. So I never called Ed back and explained to him what the meeting with Dave was about. But, later on, years later, after all that, we refriended and great regard for everybody in Van Halen. And I hated to see the band break up, even though it was a good break for me to play with Dave. But I love Van Halen. When Dave got back in with them, I was very, very happy, and that was one of my favorite bands. But that was long ago.